My brothers and sisters, I love you. Thanks for being with us right now. I am so excited by tonight's guest. You know him as the author of The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, The Advantage, The Motive, one of the most popular business authors and gurus in the business world. I know him as one of my very best friends, my dear friend, Pat Lencioni. We're going to be talking about his journey in faith and his new book, The 6 Types of Working Genius, which I am so geeking out about. It's literally, not many books have really had a major impact on my life, especially things like in the business world, but this one, whoa.
And your excitement about it excites me and my whole team.
Yeah.
Like we've been talking about it for a year and a half. So
awesome.
I can't wait to talk about it
So
today.
dude, thanks for being with us. I love you, man.
I love you too. It's
Thanks.
great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really glad you're here.
Yeah.
I just, it's, I don't care if there's any cameras. Frankly, I just enjoy talking to you. And we don't get quite enough time to sit down and just chill. And something I love, before we dive into the new book and the Working Genius and its transforming power and how people can use it, frankly, in their home life, not just in their business. If you don't have a business, this totally applies to you. My whole family's done the Working Genius, and we're all geeked out, and it's so fun.
My wife and I, our marriage has changed after almost 30 years. We discovered this 2 years ago, and breakthroughs in our marriage.
Cool. It's so cool, man.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go there, though, I want you to share your faith story, and I love starting this way because I know you before knowing you as a business guru. I know you as a man of, and by business guru, guys, like if you're CEO of Southwest Airlines or Pinterest, you're going to Pat for advice. Okay, so that's when I say business guru, I don't mean like,
Those are both clients, actually.
Those are both actual clients of Pat. You never, small little companies, mom and pops, you never heard of them. But before knowing you and honoring you in that way, and your genius in that way, your faith, brother, like you're a brother in faith. And I've seen the amount that you've poured yourself into the church, into apostolates like mine at Real Life Catholic, starting the amazing parish. And I'm looking at this thinking, okay, this is a guy, like looking from the outside, like Pat's time is worth a lot. And you spend probably, what percent of your time now are you dumping into ministries?
It's
a horrible business move,
It
dude.
fluctuates between 20 and 50, you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, no, praise God for that.
Oh, praise him for sure.
So some people would look at you from the outside who don't have faith and say, what's wrong with you? So let me ask your conversion story by asking, what's wrong with you, Pat? Now, what happened?
Well, I grew up as a Catholic,
Yeah.
and thank God for my parents giving that to me. But it was, I didn't know how to experience my faith completely. But I was always there, and then I became a business person, and because of wounds and the desire to achieve, I wrote my first book, and then I started my own firm, and then I became a best-selling author. And
became a business person. What did that entry into business person mean for you? Did you go straight into coaching?
I graduated from college and knew I needed to make money because work was the most important thing in life. I came from a pretty poor family and no college education in my parents, and so I said, I have to do well. So I got a job as a management consultant, which was really quantitative stuff in an office, but it was a really prestigious job, and I hated it.
Okay.
But I worked there.
So this is the meaning of life. Faith's not in the meaning of life to you. You said because of your wounds you wrote a book. Can you spell that out a little more for me?
Well, because of my wounds, I worked hard and had to succeed. And then I got in the business world, and I started noticing things and I said, boy, I want to change the world of work. Because work, it was all broken. My dad was unhappy when he was younger, kind of about his jobs. And so I said, I want to do that. But my faith was, God was there, of course, but I was still so wounded that I just wanted to be successful. I wanted to make a difference. I hate that song at church. Go make a difference. They sang it yesterday at church, and my son and I were like,
Steve Angersano, I love that song. I don't care if Pat.
Do you really?
Yeah, actually. I love the guy who wrote it too.
I don't know who that was. Anyway.
He's going to send a question in later.
But I wanted to make a difference because I was broken and I wanted to be successful and I wanted to redeem myself and all this other stuff.
It's like, hey, I matter, right?
Exactly.
There's that woundedness that, what percent, you work with a lot of successful people, like what percentage of successful, like, top 50 entrepreneurs in America are driven by fundamental wounds that got them that successful?
I would say roughly 100.
About all of them.
Yeah, and I work with these CEOs, these really rich people and successful people, and I've met athletes and coaches and famous people, and they're not that happy. And so I became a best-selling author. I had 10 books, and I would go places and be treated really well. And I had a wonderful wife, Laura. She's fantastic, and my children, and I was making more money and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not happy. I'm not content. I'm not peaceful. And I remember I met Mike Singletary, who was a player for the Chicago Bears and the coach of the 49ers and stuff. And they asked him once, why do you wear a cross? Because he wore a cross. He goes, oh, because when our team won the Super Bowl, I decided to start wearing a cross. They said, because you were grateful? He goes, no, because I was so empty. I realized if winning the Super Bowl doesn't make me happy, then I'm missing something. And I won the Super Bowl of life. You know, I had these books and I was well known and successful and had everything. And I was like,
why? I just got chills when you said
I
that.
was empty.
Yeah.
And I said, God, I was at church one day and I said, God, I want to be successful in your eyes. I want to live for you. And it was this parable of the sower. Like the seed that fell on the path, it didn't grow. The seed that fell next to the path didn't grow. The seed that fell among the thorns, it grew up, got choked off by the cares of the world. And I was like, that's me, the cares of the world. Wow, I made it to level 3.
Yeah.
But level 4 is where I need to be, where I grow and produce 100-fold.
Wow.
And I was like, God, I'm not there. Please get me there. And he said, do you know what that's going to take? I felt him say that. He said, you're going to suffer. And I was like, where else can I go? And so I entered a dark night of the soul where he stripped away all of my joy.
How did that happen?
You know, he didn't allow me to cheat on my wife or take drugs or drink or gamble. But he said, I'm going to strip you down to where nothing that you've valued in your life to this point will have any impact. And I was absolutely devastated, and I didn't know why. And it was in that moment that I was completely dependent on him. And it was the most awful, painful, wonderful, important thing I could ever go through. And that must have been about 12 years ago.
I remember you sharing an experience where you had spoken before a crowd that included past presidents of the United States. And was it that moment that was like the lowest?
This preceded it.
Yeah.
So I was at Radio City Music Hall speaking at this conference with presidents and all these famous people, and I got really high mark. They were applauding me, and I walked off stage, and there's a little door that goes right outside. So I walked off stage and just walked right out onto the street, and stumbled down to St. Patrick's Cathedral and got on my knees and cried and said, "Okay, God, I have nothing. This isn't doing it for me." A group of people being famous, being well-known, being successful. And God was like, I know, that's never going to satisfy you.
There are those who hit rock bottom because they mess up and they find themselves at the bottom in the darkness. And then there are those who go to the top and look down and see the same darkness, right? That was you, because you got it all. It's like, it's not enough.
Right.
I'm made for something more.
Yeah.
And I love how you said you didn't go into all these other things that can medicate that emptiness, right? That emptiness from our human condition, from our childhood wounds. I love there's a line in Matrix where Morpheus says to Neo, welcome to the desert of the real. Yeah. There's like all the garbage stripped away, but there's pain, but it's real. I could go into a virtual world instead and spend my life there. No, let's go into the real. Yeah. So praise God, you pushed through and didn't keep medicating with more and more
achievement. That was my medication.
The fulfillment. Wow.
Worldly achievement.
So how do you rebuild when you find yourself there and realize that this isn't enough? How did you rebuild?
You realize that the only peace that there is through Jesus, and you stay close to Him. I was at Mass today, and I was saying that Jesus, let me stay close to you.
It was literally an experience of prayer that from that moment that rebuilt you.
Absolutely. And what happens is then you start to feel better, and the evil one goes, see, now you're feeling better. You can indulge in that other stuff. Because people would say to me, Pat, it must be great to be well-known and successful. And it'd be like, no, not without God. And if I had none of that, but I had God, I would be the luckiest man in the world. If I have all of that and not God, I am empty.
Wow. Okay, so I've got a question that came in. What's the right level of the drive to succeed without taking it too far? Let me ask this in another way too. When the motives of there's nothing else in life, therefore must succeed. I have to measure up to my dad, for instance, right? Like there may be some kind of family dynamic, so therefore I have to succeed. When that's removed, yet you're still a successful dude.
Yes, and
right?
that's the problem. And I was just praying this morning about this.
Yeah.
I have to give that to Jesus every day.
So it's an ongoing temptation to keep losing yourself in achievement. And the
Absolutely.
addiction of achievement.
It's always there.
Mm.
Everyone's addicted. We're
Yeah.
all addicts.
Yeah.
My addiction was to success and achievement. And people go, well, that's a good one. It's like,
Yeah.
oh no, addiction to anything takes you away from Jesus.
Mm.
And so every day I have to go, because people go, well, you're really successful. And I will say to them, yeah, praise God. He's using me. He gave me gifts. And
Yeah.
I get to use it. Oh yeah, I'm glad you give thanks to God. But they'll say this. It's like the devil's right behind him going, but come on, some of it's you.
Yeah.
Just take a little bit of it.
Isn't that amazing?
They do that all the time. And they're like, I know, Pat, but can't you receive some
Yeah.
of it? And it's like, oh no, I'm receiving it and giving it right to him because it's all his.
Well, that was Moses' big sin. The reason he didn't get to the promised land, where the people were thirsty, he's like, do you want me to give you water? He takes the staff. He's like, I'll do it. And the Lord's like, no, dummy, that was always me.
Right.
It was me gifting you, and that's not where you get your dignity from. I love in the Gospels where Jesus tells his apostles, go and drive out demons, but don't rejoice that you can, drink poison and not die. Rejoice that your name's written in heaven.
Right.
That you're a child of the Father.
And this whole idea of, and I love the question, is you can't serve both God and mammon.
Mm.
And what that means is you can't keep any of that pride.
Pat, sorry, go ahead.
No. And that's not some
Yeah.
like overly masochistic or, it's like, no. If you're keeping any of it for yourself, it's not honoring him.
Pat, when you find yourself in deep peace, right? When it's like, okay, I'm beloved of my Father. I don't need to write another book to matter. Is it demotivating? Does an inner phlegmatic come out of Pat Lencioni?
Well, this is a problem. And that's the question I think was getting at, too.
Right,
It's
right.
like, so what's your motivation?
Right, the motive.
And the motivation needs to be, God gave me gifts.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to use them. And I'm using the right ones if it gives me joy to use them. But if I'm doing it because I want the external secondary benefit from it,
Yeah.
I want to be famous. And hey, there were times when I'd be writing my book thinking, man, if this book goes well, the good news is it takes 8 months after I finish writing before anybody reads it.
Yeah.
So I never get that immediate.
Right.
It was usually the speaking. And you know this.
Dude.
You say something funny and it's given to God and they clap and they laugh. And there's that inner wound that goes, take that for yourself. They like you.
Yeah.
And you're important to them. And you're like, no.
Mm.
I mean, I can't imagine being a professional athlete or a rock star, or there's a reason why those celebrities,
No, yeah.
and it's because it's worth nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right. And I in the same temptations of ministry, me and Pat have hold each other accountable to being healthy human beings with a lot of this stuff. But I've shared with Pat, like, there was a lot of motives to succeed in ministry that I thought were purely holy. And then the Lord, when COVID came, it was like, you're not speaking live and getting that instant gratification hit every week of seeing like, you making this impact. And then it was like, the fact that I needed it to feel normal was like, whoa, what kind of emotional burden am I bearing? Right. See, the thing is, I think some of these false motives mix with good. And then by the time you're in your mid-40s, they just get exhausting.
Oh, man.
Right? And then the Lord's like, let me just take that away from you so you can have a freeing motive for your whole life. I got a great question. Who can you point to who has succeeded well? So, when you say 100% of these entrepreneurs are driven largely by wounds, I'm thinking, like, if you took that away, would they just all stop? I've thought of this with Jimi Hendrix. If he wasn't doing LSD, would he have written half the songs he wrote? Would they have sounded as cool?
Well, the writing the songs and doing the LSD were the same thing.
For him, yeah.
And so who has succeeded well? Yeah. I can tell you a lot of people, and they're not famous. Fame is a curse or a difficulty, a real challenge.
Okay.
The saints did. Here's the thing about most of the saints. We look at them now and go, I want to be a saint. Most of them, maybe all of them, died before anybody knew that they were saints. We tend to think like, and there was Peter being carried off, and that we think of some movie where there's thousands of people going, yeah, Peter.
Wow.
He was being carried off. Yeah. When Paul was going to be beheaded and all those other things, nobody was going like, yeah, but we look at the movie and the music is playing and we're thinking, that's so great. They were alone.
Yeah.
So very few people achieve worldly success well.
I think of the Carthusians, super contemplative hermit like monks. They don't mark their graves in case there's miracles from their bodies and from their gravesites. So they know in this life they give up any hope of even being canonized in the next life. That's hardcore, man.
Yes.
That is awesome. Someone asked a question in business, how do you work through failure and calamity? I would think, right, if you're not overly attached to your success, then failure is okay too, right?
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Failure is disastrous when your ego and your identity is tied to success. And I've been there.
Yeah.
I've
And then
been
you're less
there.
likely to succeed
Yeah.
because you're not taking risks. You're having
Right.
fun.
And it's such an interesting, isn't it an interesting dynamic? It's like give it away, and God will bless you, but not with the worldliness.
Yeah.
But with the beauty. And this is the working genius thing that we've been talking about.
Yes.
Okay,
I want to pivot to working genius.
I want to tell you.
And then there's other questions coming in about work in general, but we got to pivot to working genius because it's so stinking cool. And a great pivot to this too. So many of my wounds made me think I had to fit certain ideals in work. Working genius freed me of that. Sorry, what were you saying? I don't want to cut you off.
Well, so working 2 years ago, I was at work. COVID had just happened. We decided to go back to work earlier than the rest. Small company, and in working with a bunch of priests that I do, and another organization, the Amazing Parish, one of my favorite. I mean, they're my people.
Look up Amazing Parish.
Yeah, amazingparish.org. But I came up with this model by accident, just to satisfy. Like somebody said, "Why are you like that?" Because sometimes I would get grumpy at work, and I'd be happy at work, and like, "Why are you like that?" I go, "I don't know."
Were they asking in an insulting way?
No. Like, Pat, why did you just went from one activity where you were really excited into another one and you seemed really frustrated, and now you're doing this other one and you're excited. What's wrong? And I was like, I don't know, but let's figure it out. And 4 hours later, I had a whiteboard with all these circles on it. It was the working genius model. And you know something, Chris? And this is what I want to say. I don't remember how it came about. I honestly don't. And the beauty was, because it's the biggest thing I've ever done in my professional career.
Is it literally?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be way bigger.
This outweighs 5 dysfunction of a team?
Yeah. And yet I don't really remember coming up with it. And it was that moment I was like, oh God, you're using me as a vessel. And people's lives are changing. My life is changing. Yours, through doing this.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember that 4 hours. I kind of I know that sounds like
no, it's incredible, man.
And I was like, wait, what happened during that time? And God was like, yeah, dude, if you believe in me, then I was using you to come up with something that was going to help other people understand the gifts I gave them.
Awesome.
And I get to go, yeah, this was not me.
I think and you've been doing it.
I mean that.
No, seriously, it's amazing. You've been doing it forever too. Like it's an act of grace, but it's also like the Lord used what's in you and just like, here's the thing. Let me help you out here. Because one reason you could jump into a mess in a company and figure out how to deal with everybody is like you've kind of been discerning this for a long time. So
yes.
Right. So sum up what the working genius is.
So we are all born with God-given talents when it comes to like very specific kinds of work. Mm-hmm. And if we don't know what those are, how can we serve God and be good stewards of that?
Yeah.
The other thing is God intends us to use the gifts he gave us. But sometimes in life we think I'm supposed to use the gifts he didn't give me because that's like I need to sacrifice and do that. So like I grew up with
just toughen up, just offer it up, just do stuff you hate.
I have the gift of invention, coming up with new ideas, and discernment, evaluating ideas and things. When I'm doing those, I am fed and I can serve God that way, and that's how I serve others. I don't have the gift of tenacity. You and I don't. That's one of the gifts. That's like finishing things and wrestling things to the ground and being precise. Yep. And I also don't have the gift of enablement, which is like when somebody says, I need your help.
The piano teacher.
The piano teacher.
I'll sit by you.
I'll sit next to you and do that.
Yep.
And I used to feel bad about that. And in my life for years, I thought I was supposed to be doing the things I was bad at. Because if it was pleasurable, then it was selfish.
Wow. See, I had certain wounds that this healed of not measuring up in certain ways. And so as a guy who has a small company at Real Life Catholic, it's a nonprofit, small company, all these lies of like, well, as a boss, I should have this gift of tenacity. I should love sitting in front of a spreadsheet. And like, dude, my eyes glaze over, I get a twitch.
I'm just lazy.
Yeah, I'm just not a responsible administrator. Or if I'm dreaming too much, it's just Chris being out of control, I start gaslighting myself. And then frankly, surrounding myself with people who sometimes would, just feed into what I'm already doing to myself.
That's the devil.
That's crazy.
Priests use this, and they go, I'm not good at wonder and invention. Those are yours.
Yes.
Wonder,
yeah.
Chris is great at there's 6 of these.
There's
Wonder
6 geniuses, right?
Yeah, and workinggenius.com, go there and you can learn all about it.
Dude, you have to go to workinggenius.com.
And we priced it at $25 to take the assessment. Dave Ramsey, my friend, said, what? You could have charged a lot more.
Yeah.
We want everyone to do it.
Yeah.
Chris is the genius of wonder. You ask questions, you ponder things. You're like, why is that the way it is? What about that? And your wife will tell you, oh, you do it all the time.
Yep.
My wife and you are the same type. Every time she frustrates me, I go, I love you, Laura, because I love Chris too, and you're exactly like him. So trust me, when I'm telling you you're driving me crazy, I tell him too. And she's like, well, you do love Chris, so okay.
So therefore, I believe you.
So you're good at wonder and invention.
Yeah.
You are a fount of new ideas and new questions. God wants you to do that. But what the devil comes along and says, no, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing the stuff you don't like.
Yeah.
So these priests will call and say, I don't have wonder or invention. So writing a sermon is hard for them. You write a sermon in 3 minutes.
Yeah, right.
It's
I
natural.
gave a friend a wedding toast because it was a last minute request, and people were crying. They're like, that's one of the best. You must have really worked hard in that. I'm like, no, I never leave this space.
And God gave you that gift. Now,
Yeah.
if you're a pastor who became a priest to give his life to God, and you're not good at writing sermons, we've had these pastors say, I felt guilty for 20 years because I'm bad at that. Maybe I shouldn't be a priest.
Yeah.
He wants to hear confession, and he wants to come alongside someone and just help them in their need in that moment.
Yeah.
I don't want to be inventive. I just want to pour into them enablement. And that's a different gift.
Yep.
Not every priest is meant to be everything. In fact, none of them are everything.
Yep.
And so every pastor is sitting there going, I can't write good homilies. Another one is like, I'm not good at listening to confession. Another one's like, I'm not good at the budget. Another one's like, I'm not good at inspiring people. It's like, yeah.
And all of them living with the lie, especially that have wounds they're working through, that they're inadequate, that they have to be good at all these things. They're just being selfish if they spend all their time in homily land or in coaching people land, or if they need to ask for help from their team, well, it's because they're lacking or giving up control if they do that, right? All lies.
Absolutely. When I was a kid, my dad wanted me to help him mow the lawn.
Yeah.
But he wanted me to be an enabler, which means do whatever he asks, and a tenacity, which is finish. Those are my two weaknesses. They're called my working frustrations. I felt guilty for not loving helping my dad. He'd go, help me mow the lawn. I'd be like, oh, I hate this. I'd go out and do it. I'm a terrible son. And 2 years ago, I figured this out, and I was like, oh, that was just not my
thing.
If my dad had said, hey, Pat, I want you to go figure out how to do the lawn, do it your way, and you decide what flowers to plant and how to do it, come up with a new way, I would have been like, yes! But he wanted something that and if he had known that, he'd have said, oh, this is painful for you.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to my kids and trying to figure out.
So there's the working geniuses.
Yeah.
So for me, it's wonder invention. It's how can this be done differently, and then figure it out how. Then there's I'm a widget. G discernment.
Your second thing.
Yep. So this is a competency. So there's things that feed you. There's the things you're competent at. So you can't stay there forever. But discernment and then galvanizing. Let's go. And then enablement, tenacity are my frustrations.
I like to do it like this. If we had 3 mugs up here.
Yeah.
The first one would be your working genius. That's like a thermos that you screw on the lid and you put hot coffee in it. It stays hot forever. You keep your energy. When you're doing what's in your working genius, WIID, it's a party.
Yeah, Pat, when I came to your office once, very exhausted, Pat gives me a lot of consulting. He gives me a discount from what he usually charges Southwest Airlines and Google. I think it's 100% discount. But I was exhausted. I'm like, I got so much to do. He's like, we're going to do a podcast right now. And by the way, I have a new podcast coming out with Pat as my sidekick half the time. But
and it was like, you're going to do a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to make you do yours.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, there's no way I could fit. I'm telling you, I'm exhausted. No, you're exhausted because you're doing the wrong stuff.
Right.
Not too much stuff, right? So you're staying in your sweet spot, and you got like an infinite supply.
Like we did 3 episodes, and you were charged up.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm ready to do whatever now.
People think burnout is because you're doing too much work.
Doing the wrong work.
You're doing the wrong work. You know what people in my office would do? I would be burned out, and they would take away my fun work to save up my energy for the stuff I hated.
Wow.
And it was just driving me further into the ground.
Wow.
So your working genius is the stuff where you get your energy.
Yeah.
The working competencies are the other 2 where you're okay at it, but there's no lid on it. So eventually the coffee's going to go cold.
That's well said.
The working frustration, there's a hole in the bottom of the cup and you're pouring it goes right out.
Yeah.
This stuff will kill you.
Yeah.
And my first job out of college, for 2 years I did the work I hated. And I said, I'm a fraud and a failure. Do you know how many people in the world think terribly of themselves? Not because they're not good people and not because they don't have skills, but they're doing the wrong thing.
It's this unnecessary shame burden.
Oh, and I don't care if you're 75 years old or if you're just getting into college or you're somewhere in your career. If you're not happy in what you're doing, find out what your geniuses are. God wants you to use the talents he gave you.
I love how this is. I've taken a lot of personality tests, Myers-Briggs. They're all good.
I like them all.
The traditional temperaments, sanguine, choleric. I used to think I was melancholic. Give me a break. All right. But this is the one that I think has such an immediate, obvious application to life activities, to work, to where we spend 80% of our life.
10 minutes after people get their report back, and they go, "Oh crap."
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, no wonder I failed at that. Oh, no wonder I love this.
And here's the thing. And guess what? Oh, it's okay that I failed at that. It's okay that I'm lacking, and the Lord has made his plan such that I need other people. Yeah. Such that Father X needs a team to help him dream of the homily, and that team, just like the Lord knows he could do everything himself, but he chose to need us to share the joy with us.
Well, think about it in a marriage. There's two people. I think that's still the rule, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it depends on what show you're watching.
But so my wife and I have two geniuses.
Yeah.
Two of them are the same. So of the 6, we only have 3. 3 of them are uncovered. So we're left to go, how are we going to do the other 3? And so we need each other. We actually need other people to help us.
And they have the joy of helping you.
Exactly.
When you accept it for what it is. There's also that sometimes you're working with people who have opposite geniuses, and you all start getting this tension and kind of judging each other. But this puts language around, no, stay in your lanes and appreciate each other.
Exactly.
You stink at what he does, he stinks at what you do, and guess what? That's totally fine.
In fact, it's wonderful
it's
to
good.
know we need each other.
Yeah, we have a thing now where we're not offended anymore with my small staff. We're like, I'm sorry, Mary, you're great at discerning and tenacity. Please don't come to this meeting, because when your eyes glaze over, I'll get drained of energy and think, you're not. And now she can like, no, that's a WI meeting. I don't want to go. It's like, good. I want you to leave work fulfilled today.
Right, and she doesn't feel like a failure. In fact, she's being honored for who she is.
That's right.
Now,
it's
there are those
Catholic,
moments.
Frankly.
Totally. There are those moments we have to do things we don't like.
I hate that, but it's life.
But, like my son Matthew says, he goes into the T cave. He calls it this tenacity cave. He goes, I have an hour worth of cranking to do. It's not my genius, but I'm going to go in there and say, I can tolerate this for an hour. But I'm not going to feel guilty about hating it. I'm just going to get through it and go, yes.
I love it, man.
But if you go in there and think, I'm supposed to like this, God didn't mean for you to like
that.
Right.
Or when you interact with someone and think, why aren't you bringing this to the table? What's wrong with you? Nothing wrong with me. I love how Matthew, when we were discerning stuff, he's a WD, right? So if we're trying to figure out how to get something done, he's like, no, I know if it's a good idea. I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah, he'll say to me, Dad, that idea won't work. And I'll go, well, what will? And he goes, I don't know. I don't have an eye, but you got to keep trying.
That's you, dude. Give me another one. I'll tell you if it stinks.
It used to annoy me.
Yeah.
Because I used to think, before I understood it, he'd be like, well, you're criticizing my idea. Do you don't have a better one? He goes, no, I'm not the kind of guy who comes up with that. But I am the kind of guy that gives feedback.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you're serving me.
I love this. How do you apply this to your kids to build them up? And I think you just hit on it.
Oh, praise God.
It's just accepting them for who they are.
Oh, and it's so painful to know that for years I didn't know.
Yeah.
I did, because it's not like that obvious. I have a son who's a WE, which means he wonders and supports others. He gets kind of stepped on by his friends. And we used to be like, why do you let them do that to you? And it's like, oh, that's how God made you.
Wow.
Now we can say, Michael, it's okay to stand up for yourself, but we know that's not easy for you, and we're not gonna beat you up. We're just gonna support you. And it's weird because it allows us to see him suffering and understand why.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then come alongside him without judging him.
Yeah, when people feel seen, they feel built up. It's a healing experience.
Yes.
Brother, thank you so much. So workinggenius.com.
Yeah, workinggenius.com.
Workinggenius.com. Dude, I'm telling you, I want every single person. It's worth the $25. All right, I want every person who's watching this show to go to workinggenius.com and check that out. And get the book, The 6 Types of Working Genius. Is that on Amazon?
No, that doesn't come out till September. You can pre-order it if you want to.
Oh, so I have an early copy.
Yeah, yes.
It's great. You'll get it in September. But how do they pre-order?
Just go to whatever site you go to. I don't like to advertise for them.
No, what's your
Amazon,
site?
Barnes & Noble.
Can they get it on your site?
No, you go to one of those other sites. Books A Million is one.
Okay, so if you just look up
Amazon,
The 6 Types of Working
Barnes &
Genius,
Noble,
it'll come up and you can and you get it there. Hey, I love you so much, man.
I love you too. And I wish I could just give it all away for free, but my publisher won't let me do all that stuff.
Dude, we don't mind $25. So
right.
Thank you. Yeah, I love you so much, dude. Thank you so much.
you.
Guys, I love you. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week. Man, wasn't that great? Listen, if you don't want to be happy, be sure not to subscribe. But if you want a more joyful life, the kind of life that God created you for, the kind of life Jesus promised when he said, I came to give you life to the full, then make sure you hit subscribe and share this channel with everybody you know.